Star Wars movies are big business, and fans keen to meet the actors can go along to conventions and hear more about the making of the films. Often there are only one or two bounty hunters, but at the HCon sci-fi event in Eastleigh recently, there were more.
We've got 4 bounty hunters. One's from the original movie, a gentleman called Paul Blake, and 3 from The Empire Strikes Back, which is Alan Harris, who's Bosk, Kathy Munro, which is Zuckus, and myself, who played Forlom. So that's quite unique, and the fans like that because they can get lots of signatures.
Kathy Munro was just 18 when she played Zuckus and has been a professional actor ever since. She'd never heard of sci-fi conventions nor realised that fans had been missing her.
When I first left drama school, and I used my obviously my maiden name, which is Catherine Munro, and then during the making of this, I was applied for an equity card. So I did other work before, and I was waiting to be approved. And they said to me, unfortunately, there's somebody with a very similar name to yours, and you're not able to use your name. So I said, well, what will I do? They said, you have to choose another name. So I chose at random Katie Jarrett. So that was the name that I started doing all my equity work with when I worked at the BBC. So years had gone by, and I was actually having a coffee at the BBC, and I was talking to another actor, and I was telling him this story that I'd worked on Star Wars. He said, but you know, who did you play? And I said, oh, Zuckus, one of the bounty hunters. And he said, no. He said, really? He said, but you Kathy Munro? And I said, yes. He said, but I thought you were Katie Jarrett. I said, no. And I explained the story. He said, don't you realise people have been looking for you for years? They thought you were dead. And I said, no, I'm not dead. I said, what? He said, they want you to do conventions. And I just couldn't believe it. So I went away. I thought he was a bit of a nut, really. Anyway, I went away and I did all the research, and my husband and me, we checked it all out, and we realised it was genuine. And so I thought, I've got to set the record straight, and that was how I came to be. So it was a quirk of fate. If I hadn't have met him, really, I still wouldn't have known.
Kathy said she'd be delighted to play the bounty hunter again if only her stamina could keep up.
It's quite gruelling, you know, the long days. You're standing in heavy costumes with lights, you know, full on. You know, you have to have a lot of stamina, and obviously it's quite claustrophobic in a lot of these costumes, as you can imagine. And my particular Zucker's costume, I wasn't able to take the headdress off, so I had an assistant with me all the time, and she used to have to take it off because it was locked onto my head like a diver's helmet, so I couldn't pull it off. It was actually locked, so I couldn't think about that. I had to keep concentrating on what I needed to do to just get through, but I would like to do it.
What's a chance of being a cameo role in any of the future ones that they're going to make? What would you say?
I think I'm 77 years old. I retired 12 years ago. I think they want young people to do these things so they can then go on to make the second one or the third one.
Yes, that would be fantastic, and maybe, you know, can't say too much, but maybe that might happen in the future. So we live in hope.
I would definitely now be interested in being in, say, episode 8. I'd like to have been in episode 7, but I've re-established my interest in films.
Any young people that come in and do parts on the film, they'll love it because they'll become historic, because that's what's happened to us, you know, all these years later.
And Paul Blake, who played Greedo, declined an interview about the bounty hunters all in the same place, as Greedo is not a Rhodian bounty hunter, but an assassin. This is Shan Robins for Solent News Now.